Well, hello everybody and welcome again to the Weirdly Magical podcast. This is the Sagittarius Full Moon episode, but I'll talk more about that in a moment. This is Louise Eddington and this is Jen Duchenne. And Jen, let's have you introduce yourself for the first this time.
Okay, so I'm Jen. Hi, everyone. And I'm an Akashic reader and numerologist. I also have created the Illuminating Journey cards, which I have for sale on my website. So my focus is helping people transform their thinking and their behavior so they can create a different life, which is freer and more focused on where they want to go and building up their strengths. And my website is jenduchenne.com. So I do readings, teachings, workshops, and I have a workshop coming up online for the cards, the fundamentals for Illuminating Journey cards. It's going to be starting in July, so that's exciting.
Cool. How fun. And I am Louise Eddington. I am a soul astrologer, shamanic practitioner, and writer of the book Modern Astrology: Harness the Stars to Discover Your Soul's True Purpose, which is available on Amazon. And I'm going to just give a plug at the moment for anybody that already has the book. Even if you bought it elsewhere, Amazon reviews really help the book get more visibility. So please head over to Amazon and give me a review. And if you didn't buy it from Amazon, you click on the Kindle version to be able to give a review. You can still review it, even if you didn't buy it from there. But anyway, I offer soul astrology readings. I sometimes do classes. I have an online community membership. All these things can be found on my website, louiseeddington.com with one D, or yourcosmicblueprint.com should take you there as well. I also want to mention right now the Planetary Magic Cafe group on Facebook is a free group, and I am offering a 30-day challenge for doing the morning pages, which is kind of stream of consciousness writing. It's a tool from the Artist's Way. I want to get back in the habit of doing it myself this month, and you'll realize why as Jen and I talk about the energies. So I'm offering it as a 30-day challenge to help you do it too and build up the muscle of the habit of doing it, because it's one of the best tools I've ever used in personal development, growth, whatever you want to call it. So on that note, let's talk about a little bit about the full moon. It's on June the 17th, 2019. Jen and I are going to talk about the energy around it, because the whole month of June is pretty intense and crazy. But the full moon itself will be at 9:30 a.m. London time. That's Universal Time, or BST. At 25 degrees and 53 minutes of Sagittarius and Gemini, because the full moon is in opposition. It's the last full moon before the eclipse season. We have the eclipses in July on the 2nd and the 16th. So we'll talk a little bit about that as we move towards that. But also, if you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe at your favorite podcast provider. Go to iTunes and give us a review. So I'm asking for reviews on that as well. We also now have a Patreon. For just $3 a month, you can support our podcast. And we'll be introducing special patron-only content moving forward. When we reach so many patrons, I cannot remember how many it was. And that's patreon.com/weirdly magical. And lastly, on each episode, we're offering to feature listener questions. Questions need to be emailed to weirdlymagicalpodcast@gmail.com, and one question will be chosen at random. No personal details will be shared on the podcast other than your first name. So send us your questions. We're dying to answer your questions, whether it's a general question about the universe, a more detailed one about your own chart, because anybody can benefit from those questions. But we can't feature your questions unless you send them in. So send them in. So, right, let's dive into the energies of this full moon by looking at some card pulls. Jen's pulled cards from her wonderful deck, and I've pulled a tarot card or two. So, Jen, do you want to share your card first?
Sure. So the card that I pulled is the Soul Portal 27. And for those who can't see it, it's a woman on a flying carpet, kind of flying. In the background is kind of water, and there's land and water. There's objects, golden objects, kind of flying into the carpet or off it. There's energy coming down into this woman's body, through her head, through her third eye, into the heart. She's very peaceful as she's floating through this this world. And there's some kind of sacred objects on the land. So for me, the way I see this card is, and I think it's interesting it showed up because it's that idea of being at peace with where you are, and rising above the minutiae of your life or the things you feel or worry about, so you can get to that place where you're actually traveling through life, that you're, of life, but not in it. So you're not so caught up in the details that you can't be who you are. So this card is saying you have everything you need to live a life that's delicious. And yes, there may be things happening, but you just need to feed into this energy of who you are and allow the idea of all of these things you desire, whether it's peace or love and acceptance, all of those things, all physical objects too, that are available to you. It's a constant stream. You can reach into what you need. You can also release out what you're done with. Like whatever you don't need, you can just put back in the pool. So you can travel light, as it were.
Could you hold it right up to your screen for a minute, up to your camera? Because it's very reflective. A bit higher, a little bit lower. Okay, that's a bit better. You can kind of see some of the detail on there for people. And if people want to see the card in more detail, A, you should be buying Jen's cards because they're wonderful. Or B, Jen, maybe you could post a picture of it in your Facebook group or put on your Facebook page.
Yes, right. I could do that.
People could go and look. And you can find that. Well, Jen will give you all the links at the end of the show. Because to my mind, that card, I always think, because I am Sagittarius, okay, I have Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, the Sun, and rising in Sagittarius. So I always think of Sagittarius as the bigger picture of rising above. And this Sagittarius in full moon well, not in Sagittarius, it is the Sagittarius full moon, is very much it's very much like a magic carpet ride. And but there's a lot of crazy making energy leading into it. So if you can kind of visualize that energy for this full moon, and from the period now leading up to the full moon and beyond to the solstice, I think it would help you if you picture yourself rising above and riding on a magic carpet and looking down below and seeing the bigger picture of everything instead of getting caught up in all the dramas, because there's going to be a lot of drama this month. I'm not going to lie. There's going to be a lot.
Right. Yes. What makes me think when you say that, the drama, I think it's our overthinking or focusing on small details, thinking, I want it a certain way, why isn't it this way?
Yeah.
That can get us tripped up, making people agree with us. It's very stressful.
And there's going to be a lot of drama around us because of other people. So even if you're not caught up in the minutiae, it's kind of, there's a lot of soaky up empathic energy this month with the aspects to Neptune and things. you're going to feel this drama. I'm in a Facebook group called the Circle of Professional Astrologers, which is a very private group. There's a few of us that came together to do it. It's just to support each other. And we've got a whole conversation going on at the moment about, clients that are coming our way. They seem to be really kind of losing their shit, so to speak. And a lot of people in the world are. The mental health crisis is on the rise. The flooding in in the middle of America. I've seen articles saying they're finding that people are coming to the ER basically with mental health crises more and more, because people are trying to make sense of all this stuff that's going on. So if you're listening, you may find that people around you are actually kind of losing their minds a little bit, even if you aren't. So you need to rise above that too. You need to protect yourself. It doesn't mean you don't support others that are doing, but it just means you don't let yourself get sucked. It feels like a bit of a vortex at the moment, or a flood of crazy making energies, which would be very easy to get sucked into. So I love that card came up, because it's great for people to kind of hold that image in their minds.
Right. How do you move through this? If you imagine you're on your magic carpet, and I think the whole mind thing is really important, because you think about Gemini. This is, we're in the June energy. I know it is in Sagittarius, but the whole thing about Gemini is about this mind, changing our minds or making up our minds or losing our minds. There actually is a lot of beauty in that, because our mind is just a fixed thing that has all these kind of narrow ideas that need to be changed, and we can choose to make it more difficult for ourselves by challenging and saying it's supposed to be the way it was, and it's just not going to be that way. So,
and of course Gemini is still very relevant because it's a full moon, so the moon is in Sagittarius, yes, but the sun is in Gemini opposing the moon. So, and Mercury on this full moon, well, I'll talk about more in a second, but Mercury, as we record this, is out of bounds, which means slightly out of control, and Mercury rules Gemini, and Mercury is the mind. And we talked a lot about that in the Gemini new moon forecast, and we're basically still pretty much under the new moon. The moon has just moved into Cancer as we're recording, but Mercury is right at the last degree of Gemini as we record this. So he's not only a little bit out of control, a little bit wacky, he's at the anoretic degree of Gemini as we record, the 29th degree, which is kind of the intense point of the energy. So kind of interesting. I love how it all comes together. So I did pull a couple of cards too, which I don't always pull. But one I chose deliberately, and I'm not going to spend as much time on the cards, but I just felt the urge to pull one. I actually pulled the moon card, which is the Pisces card in the tarot. Okay, and this is an interesting card. For those of you that can't see it, it's actually kind of two guardians at the gates with kind of enlightenment beyond. The scarab beetle at the bottom, which is often said to actually be Jesus in some traditions. The scarab beetle in some traditions was the Jesus figure, kind of bringing us transformation and enlightenment. And Pisces, the Neptune in Pisces is actually aspecting all of this energy on this full moon, and is almost a pivotal point for the whole month of June. So there is enlightenment. There is kind of we're really being asked to raise our vibration through June, I'm going to say. So that also comes to kind of the magic carpet thing as well, because Pisces, Jupiter was the old ruler of Pisces and is the new ruler of Sagittarius, and is conjunct the moon. So magic carpet again. It's time to float. It really is time to allow it to kind of surrender to these energies instead of trying to rationally control. The other card I wanted to share, I chose to share, is one that just keeps coming up and over and over again, is the art card. And that is the Sagittarius card. It's also the Temperance card. I'm going to suggest the actual original name of the card in other decks. Temperance is a good thing to think of for this month. I think any overindulgence and over escapism is going to make you more open to the less kind energies of June. So, any, over imbibing on anything, this is drinking, anything that's too much is kind of going to make you less able to stay above. So it's a time for a bit of a cleanse, if you like, as well. I'm going to say.
Right. That's very interesting, because the thing is, I lost my train of thought in what you were saying. Oh yes, so this idea of being on the magic carpet is not an escape, right? And that's really what we have to emphasize here. It's not an idea I'm running away from, I'm just going to pretend this stuff isn't happening. It's more, I'm aware of everything that's happening and I'm choosing where I'm focusing, as opposed to, I can't deal with this, so let me just drink, or overindulge, even in spiritual practice without being grounded, is definitely, when we're fooling ourselves and we're pretending that this isn't really happening, these disasters aren't happening, this anger doesn't have a reason, so I'm just going to disappear, is not going to serve us at all.
Not at all. It's about looking down and seeing the bigger picture of it all, and it's still all there, but you're sat on the magic carpet, so you are on this kind of grounded energy still, but you're not burying your head in the ground in escapism and just pretending it all doesn't exist and hiding from it. So you're still witnessing, because Sagittarius is the philosopher, really. It's the hierophant. He makes sense of all that's going on, Sagittarius, with the ruler Jupiter conjunct the moon. So I guess that takes me to the chart. So I'm just going to talk a little bit more about the astrology chart, and Jen will dive into the numbers. But as I mentioned at the beginning, the moon on the Sagittarius moon is at 27 degrees and 53 minutes of Sagittarius, which means the sun is at the same 25 degrees and 53 minutes of Gemini. It's on June the 17th. Jen will probably come to all those things. There's a lot going in this chart, so I'm not going to just make your eyes roll by mentioning it all. But I do want to mention that the ruler of Sagittarius, Jupiter, is at 18 degrees of Sagittarius, and Neptune, and Jupiter was the old ruler of Pisces. Neptune is in Pisces at 18 degrees. Their square is almost exact. It's just after the second of three. The full moon is just after the second of three exact Jupiter-Neptune squares this year that are kind of dominating. Also, we've got Saturn at 18 degrees of Capricorn, and his sextile to Neptune, which is another 3 series aspect of the year, is almost exact on this full moon. Neptune is also stationing retrograde just 4 days after the full moon, so he's pretty much at a standstill. So in some ways, even though this is a Sagittarius full moon, this 18-degree Pisces point is a real pivot point for this whole month, and the full moon is triggering it. So I'm sure Jen will have a lot to say about the number 18. I'm not going to go into all the other details, but we do have a major opposition between North Node, Mercury, and Mars, all in Cancer, all within 3 degrees of each other, and the South Node, Saturn, and Pluto, all in Capricorn, within 5 degrees of each other. So this is a major opposition that's all aspecting that Neptune So we'll probably be talking about that. And that's leading us into the eclipses too, because that's on the Cancer Capricorn axis. So take it away, Jen, with the numbers.
All right. I just wanted to mention briefly that all of this activity is leading us to the 2020 conjunction, which so to be aware that this is, it's more than a lifetime experience. It's a once in a century kind of experience.
It is
twice in a century. So it's pretty big deal, all of this energy that is leading us towards taking us by the hand and kind of dragging us forward, because this is so important. Like, we just cannot avoid this experience no matter what we do.
I'd say it's even an epoch changing experience.
Epoch, that's a great one.
Exactly. Yeah, because how often is the Saturn Pluto conjunction connected with the nodes so much? There's many other things happening. A mutual friend of ours, astrologer Linnae Van Horn, drew my attention to the fact that each month, sorry Jen, but I do want to mention this as well. Each month the moon is occulting Saturn and Pluto as we move into January 2020, which means from our perspective on Earth, the moon covers Saturn and Pluto every month, and that happens basically 2 days after this full moon as well, before the solstice. It's all this is so important, this energy. It's just quite amazing. But sorry, go back to the number.
No, don't apologize. It's important that people understand the strength of what is happening. This is like we're saying, we don't even know. It could be once in 1,000 years for all we know that all of this is happening, or at least we definitely know it's more than 500 years. Once in 1,000, maybe 2,000, we don't know, but it's a big deal. And it's part of our changing our minds, basically, or losing our minds, whatever you want to call it, because that always makes me think of the story of Peter Pan. Do you remember the guy? What was his name? And he was running around saying, "I lost my marbles, I lost my marbles." And that's kind of an expression we have that means you lost your mind, right? Yeah. So it's kind of funny. He's looking for his actual marbles, but he's saying, "I've lost my marbles," which means I've lost my sense of direction, in a sense. And that's what we're looking at, is the mind has lost its old way of thinking, like all of those numbers that have kept it in place and said, this is the direction, there's east, there's west, and all of this is how it is all being spun off. So we have, in a sense, lost our marbles, and now we have to find new ways, or new Earth, right? We have to find new marbles. So it's so funny how this is just making me think about, I've lost my marbles, because this is it. When we talk about everything affecting our mind or having mental health problems, it's because our mind is so rigid, and we need to be in charge of our mind, but we've let our mind and opinions of others control us. So it's a big deal when we let go. Which brings me into the numbers. So why this is so fascinating is that we are in an 18 universal months. So we know June is a 6. We have a 12 universal year, because we add all the numbers together. 2 + 1 + 9 gives us 12, plus 6 is 18. So we're in an 18 universal month. And this is really important because it sets the tone for the month. And 18 is not only about the body, so the body coming to health of some way or releasing, it is also about completion. And for me, I call this the number of the ego. So it's the number where we learn through sometimes violent methods. And I mean that in a sense, like sometimes we don't want to give something up, but we have an experience like a flood, or everything starts falling apart. We don't have control over how things end or change, because endings create transformation, change. This is what this whole Pluto Saturn thing is. It's changing our direction of our total world functioning, is changing direction. And so this is the 18 as the reminder. And we have Saturn and Pluto and Neptune on 18, and the nodes almost on 18. So it's incredible. That's a matching number, which is about us finding our focus, our roots, and being able to find that temperance that Louise talked about, which is the idea of finding our balance or sense of neutrality between two polarized things. We have an idea, someone else has an idea. Where's that place where we go, oh, this is where I'm rooted, this is where I'm grounded. And so I can observe others, be on that magic carpet. I can observe what other people are doing and go, okay, I agree with them or I don't. They're not getting pulled into the vortex of their emotion. So 18 is about endings, letting go, cleaning house, releasing, feng shuiing, you know, all of that stuff that's coming up, that Marie Kondoing, what people are talking, kondoing your life. It's all coming up because we're hitting the 18. So it's really important to recognize this is about endings. We also have a 9 in the year 2019. And with this 18 month, we know we're ending cycles. And it's obvious because now we're moving into the next month will be the eclipse, which we know we're changing gears. The other thing is I wanted to talk about is the numbers of the sun and moon together. Oh, there's one other very interesting thing about a month that has a universal 9, because 1 and 8 is 9, right? And 9 is about collecting our own wisdom, letting go of our egoic structures and like, oh, what will people think of me if I do what I love? And going, well, I'm going to do what I need to do, not just to survive, but to thrive. Right, so it's endings. So we know new beginnings are coming. And when you have a month that has a 9 as the universal month, every single day, the current date and the universal energy of that date is equal. So you're doubling the energy every day. So we're all experiencing this intensifying of the energy every single day because it's duplicated. The number is duplicated. It's very powerful. All right, so let's talk about this moon number, which is the 25, almost 26 degrees. So it's happening on the 17th, which we had in May. Remember, we had the number 17 in May, and that this is called the number of leaving a legacy. It's about superseding our small self and connecting to our greater soul. This is about our soul's journey, our soul's desire to have expression, which is happening. So we had a little taste of that in May, kind of pushing us towards this energy. And now we're being pushed in the Sagittarius moon, which is about the truth, right? What is my truth? I need to explore more. I need to understand more. What's my truth? What legacy do I want to lay down? What connection to the earth? Because this is a manifesting number. The 17 is a manifesting number. We have, oh, I'm mixing myself up. 17 is a manifesting number. It's happening on the 17th, right? The moon is not the 17, right? The date is the 17. The moon is the 25 degrees, right? Almost 26. Very close to 26, which is also an 8. And our universal date, so the universal date is also an 8, the 26. So the day of the event is the 17, which is this leaving a legacy. And the date, the universal date, is also an 8, 26. Plus, this new moon is almost at an 8. Right, almost. It's a 7, but
and the minutes are at an 8.
Right, it's incredible. It's almost a 888, which is incredible because 888, the power of 888, this idea of being in that place of in the cycle of infinite movement. Anything is possible if we find our balance, if we find that fulcrum point, we find that place, that neutrality or temperance that brings us to that center so we can function even though there's all this chaos around us. I do want to also address the 25 because that's important. I think the 25 is like the crusader number. It's the number of seeking out our truth, in a sense. Like, I'm going to go all for this. What do they call it? Balls to the walls or something like that. That's a expression. Like, we are going to go for the thing we believe in, that awakens our soul, that awakens our senses. We're retreating from the idea of being activated by how other people see us, and going to a place of, this is what's true for me. I'm inspired. I am electrified to do the thing I desire. And I love how it matches that whole Jupiter energy, right, of being in Sagittarius, right? The seeker, willing to kind of look at your philosophy, your religion, and go. And when I say the word religion, I don't mean actual religions, but the way we see our philosophy or life, how we acted out in the world, our response to what's going on.
Really, how you kind of ground your spirituality.
Right.
Yeah. You
Right.
know, it's all fascinating, this energy to me. You know, the moon is conjunct the galactic center on the full moon too, because the galactic center is approximately 27 degrees Sagittarius, but it's so big it kind of spans. It doesn't have a degree and minute so much as our closer in planets, because the galactic center is the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy. Then that's why it's the galactic center. It's the center of the Milky Way, and you know, it's said the galactic center is said to emit new information, to kind of suck out the stuff we don't need anymore, and then with a kind of laser beam focus almost send us this new information that we need to raise our vibration, to go back to that again. You know, I'm not fond of those new age pat raise your vibration kind of thing, but this month we really are being asked to raise our vibration, raise our belief system, raise our consciousness in major ways. You know, all of this is saying the South Node conjunct Saturn and Pluto. Incidentally, Pluto currently at the degree that Saturn and Pluto will meet at in January. He's retrograde and will go off that degree again, but he's there right on this full moon. And saying, leave behind, like Jen's been saying, it's like we're being asked to flood away our attachments to the rules we've allowed to govern us. And so the literal floods are kind of reflecting what we're being asked to do in our souls, in our spirits. I even had, you know, pay attention to flashes of awarenesses that you're getting at the moment. I read an article this morning that our beloved president has announced he's cutting funding to Native American schools and reservations. He's almost kind of washing away all the things people have fought for years. And I don't know, you know, it may be simplistic, but the flash that came to mind was, we've got to stop relying on the man, you know, to provide this funding for us, and all come together and do it in a different way. Just how can we do this differently? How can we look at this differently? And how, I'm not saying we have to become all libertarian and pull your boots. It's different to that. It's a whole new way we're being asked. You get what I mean? It's not saying, well, we don't need you. We've got freedom to do what we want. It's about doing it in community, but in a different way than has been set up before. I can really, you know, see that if we survive the climate crisis, if we kind of really come to look at things differently, whole new constitutions could be created, you know, where we say this way is not working, that's been set up for centuries, you know, of this top-down rulership. It's just not working, and it seems to be getting crazier and more intense by the day. You know, I see Trump as a tool, basically, of the universe to show us that the old way is not working. I said that right at the beginning. He's kind of our shadow in our face. And the more he strips away things, the more we're being woken up to the fact we need to do things completely differently. And I think people are waking up. But this month is intense. And then, as Jen said, it leads into the eclipse season, that with the total solar eclipse on July the 2nd at 10 degrees of Cancer, conjunct the North Node, which is our Dharma, where we're heading towards. And of course, to go to Jen's numbers, that's a 1, which is a new beginning. So,
right. It's really pretty fascinating. I think what's so interesting, to pick up the thread about the president here in the States and others who are his cohorts that are supporting, there's 2 thoughts that come up. One is that for centuries, we have directed our way of doing things in a certain way. So we have put all these things in place that feed into the ego of the patriarchy. Like, okay, you want to be important, I'm going to support that. We have all done it in our own way. We've supported patriarchy, say, oh yes, you're right. I'll just do whatever you say, and I'll go behind your back and do what I want. But to just keep up the front, I'm going to make it look, and we've done this, we've created these things like charity. I actually cannot stand the word or the idea around the energy of charity, saying that somebody's less than you and therefore you have dominance over how they will be receiving what their basic needs. Like this idea now, this person who's in charge goes, I don't care about you. I don't care about your survival. I want slaves to just keep churning the wheels. So I'm just going to pull that rug, talk about rugs, from under you so you have nothing. And now all of these systems have been feeding into that same place. So giving the power to these power-hungry people. So we have basically fed the system and fed into the system and just going, wait, doesn't make any sense. We don't need to go through the government to have systems in place for people. So that's one thing that was coming up. The other was about this idea that these people, and most of them are men, but there are a lot of women that support. I mean, these men would not be where they are without the support of the daughters of the patriarchy, right? So they're supporting this system. And basically, they are so contemptuous of the rest of the world because they're not living in the world. And when we were talking about out of this world and like knowing who you are, this is a very different kind of energy. They're not tapping into that vibratory energy of, I love people, I love life, I want to share it. They're pulling away and saying, you're all just disgusting. And I find it interesting that the president here uses that word quite often about things
nasty,
to show his contempt, right?
Yeah.
Nasty and disgusting. Those are words to show contempt. And that's the kind of mind control thing. You're nothing. I'm great. I'm going to pull away what you have. And this idea of having people that are so contemptuous of basic needs is fascinating because it really brings us to the brink of going, you're rejecting me. I'm rejecting you. I'm rejecting your philosophy. I'm rejecting all the things you've made me do and that I've agreed to, jumping through all these hoops to keep your ego afloat, right? It doesn't even make any sense of how we've lived for thousands of years. So, and we're seeing this all in the charts and the numbers.
Oh, we are. And we're seeing that kind of egoic, kind of pompous kind of energy showing up even more and more. To go back to him again.
That is a great example, right? It's not him particularly. He's just an extreme of so many.
Just the picture of him in his penguin suit with the Queen. He was all puffed up and kind of really extreme. People were, laughing about his suit. And I laugh, look at it and think, what a perfect example. Of what's going on.
And if you saw oh, sorry. I was just going to say the picture of seeing him, this pompous ass, like all puffed up, you say, like bending over this tiny woman who's so powerful. I mean, to me, I can look at them and the energy of power, that he has this illusion of power, but she actually is empowered. She's
Yeah.
not threatened. She can be so kind and genteel to everyone because she knows who she is. And that's the difference of this big, blubbery air energy just coming through, trying to, do the fist bump thing and think somehow he's going to dominate. And very interesting, because he couldn't do what he's done with other leaders, right?
Yeah.
Shake their hand or kind of overbear him.
Mm-hmm.
So she is holding the space and he is trying to kind of get in there, right?
But the irony is the royalty, of course, is part of the whole patriarchy as well, but they're kind of a little bit subversive in their own way. Did you see the thing about Camilla and her wink?
Yes.
When the Trumps went for dinner with Prince Charles and his wife Camilla, she, as Charles led Trump off to dinner, she turned to somebody nearby and winked at them. Which was kind of a little bit subversive.
Exactly.
A little bit like, let's pull him down a peg or two, kind of thing. Magical.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But I think that's so interesting, because when we think about the royal, it's a great conversation, because when you think about the royalty, this is part of the thing. Yes, they're part of the patriarchy. However, royalty or that kind of thing has been with us forever, right?
Okay.
Kind of an idea. And they don't need to prove who they are.
No.
Right? They already know who they are. So they can wink and laugh and joke around. But
and
someone
they don't create their laws anymore anyway.
No, they don't. Exactly. They don't have any of that control. However, they do know who they are and they can joke about it, right? Have a sense of humor about themselves. I think this is a key thing in all of this we're talking about, is when you can see, oh yeah, I got this power and I can do this and I'm doing this, and have a sense of humor around it, as opposed to being so desperate like he is, like a slug, Well, what was that idea that's coming to mind is when he had the toilet paper on his shoe, right? You remember that?
Oh, yes. Oh.
It's that, like, you're so desperate to be recognized that you'll do anything, and you don't realize how that makes you look. Like, it makes you look weak, and it makes you feel weak too, because you're needing someone else to recognize you. And the truth,
there's so many layers in all of this. If everybody can just take a step back and do that magic carpet, looking at it from the bigger. The irony is that, yes, royalty in itself is kind of a patriarchal structure, but Camilla, who did the wink, the reason Charles wasn't allowed to marry her way back when they were young was because she was a commoner. And and so commoners were not allowed in the royal family at that point. But now they are. Now Harry's married a goddamn American who's half black and half white, and it's wonderful. So they're changing, shifting gradually with the times. I know a lot of my friends are anarchists and want the royal family to just die and disappear, but just witnessing it for what it is and what's going on right now is a wonderful example of the energies. So, yeah.
Right. I think it's absolutely brilliant that we're seeing this. We're actually witnessing the changes and finding the humor and finding the truth in how we have put all this energy. Like, we can say in ourselves, like, oh, when have I been like Trumpian? When have I done these things to, influence people and kind of push my energy into them to make them do things? And when have I been more like the Queen, where I've been like, oh, have a cup of tea,
Shift with the times.
Right. Yes, exactly. This kind of idea that, yes, you can have autonomy and do the things, and I don't need to push my energy into you. And there's so many ways, like the way the royal family, I think it's great theater and opera, and it's great how they show examples of how they embrace new things. Because I find it fascinating that the Americans that are meant or show themselves as being more like innovative, and they have always been innovative and new ideas, accepting new things, have such difficulty with change.
Oh yeah. They should have had a different chart for America though. Cancer doesn't, Cancer's very protective and like But interesting, this next eclipse, the first eclipse, is 2 days before July the 4th, by the way, for Independence Day. So Jen and I will be talking more about that on the next podcast, because this, for commenters and astrologers and people who witness the symbolism like we do, this is exciting times to step back and get on that magic carpet, really, and watch it all unfold. But still do your bit. See where you can do it in your own life. Where can you rise above and just float with the changes, but kind of with a bit of an oar to steer yourself a little bit as well. You need a little bit of guidance. But really, the answers are all coming from within, which is really why I started this completely free morning pages challenge in my group, because I want to do it myself. Because if you can get your thoughts out and organize them a little bit, you can steer yourself a little bit while seeing the bigger picture. You don't get so stuck in it. Okay.
Right. I think it's really important to understand the power of the mind is that the mind wants to do what you want it to do. And so we can change any of the rules we have, which is the Sagittarian energy. It's freedom. How do you break away from a structure that you've grown out of? It's painful to be in a structure that we've grown out of. And that can either lead to that Neptunian idea of kind of like, I don't want to see what's happening, or I'm so angry at what has happened. I'm so angry at how people have used me. But I think a great way to look at it, and something that I certainly practice, sometimes better than others, is why are people doing this to me? This idea of thinking someone else is doing stuff to you is all bullshit. But it's an easy out to say, I'm not responsible because I didn't ask for what I wanted. They're responsible because they didn't give me what I wanted. And so we have those experiences all the time. I was just at a weekend where we were supposed to do a certain thing and was offered, and it seemed like it was going to happen, and then it didn't happen. And then I was kind of like annoyed about it. Like, why did you say it was going to happen and it didn't happen? But then I had to step back and go, wait a minute. I didn't look at the time. I didn't know what the time was. I didn't say to the person, oh, what time are we going to do X, right? So I could have done that. It's up to me to say, I want a certain experience. I need to take charge of that experience. And I'm not saying make a nuisance of yourself, but certainly stand up for yourself and go, this is what I would like. When is it happening, or how is it happening? And if the person says, look, it's not happening now, then I have to accept it, right? But if I don't say to the person, what about that? Then how is it going to happen if they've forgotten about it?
Yeah, it's not about being a diva and going in with a whole rider of demands.
No, but but I think, yes, but there is a fear. Like, I think that's part of it, is this fear. Am I being too pushy? Like, I see myself sometimes when I know I want something, and then I go, look, I've already asked for it 3 times. Should I do it again? Is that being too pushy? And then I'm like, no, but I really want this, and I don't care if they say no. I'm not going at it to bug them. I'm doing it because this is important to me. So how can I make this happen? And if I can't, okay, but at least I know I tried. So then I'm not angry at someone else for not doing what I want. And I'm not angry at myself or disappointed because I didn't make an effort.
Or just asking the questions and opening it up sometimes gives you another way to make it happen that's not reliant on that person at all.
Right. I think the bottom line is we do need to learn to work together. So we do need to be able to say to people, this is what I would like. How is this possible? Can we do this together? And if they say, no, I don't want to work with you, or it's not possible, I can't fit you in, or whatever, then you go, oh, okay, I can go to the next person or the next item and ask. And I think that's the disconnect, that people often like, okay, it's not meant to be. Like, we say that kind of thing. This doesn't work. It's not meant to be. But I think a lot of times that's bullshit. It's like, if we really feel it isn't.
Sometimes it isn't.
Well, sometimes it isn't, and sometimes it is. I think it's the desire inside of us to express a certain thing and to learn to actually express it and say, this is what I would like. Not having attachment, that's different. When
Yeah.
you're having attachment where you're trying to force people to do things.
Exactly.
But the anger comes, the disappointment and the fury, and this is what we are going to be experiencing more of this month, is this response, this anger. I'm frustrated. I've been a victim. I want to, have my rights. I want my rights back.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't come through, it may release energy, right? No, I feel better, but it's not going to actually change anything unless we change the way we approach what we desire. And as women, and even as just normal people in society, talking about royals and leaders of countries, most of us have been taught that we've got to go in the back and wait our turn, and you'll just get the crumbs and the leavings and the charity. You don't deserve to have those equal things because you're not rich enough or you're not important enough. And that's where the pain is. So if we can cross that bridge and go, I am important enough, I'm important to the universe, I'm important to myself, how do I express and ask for what I need? We move out of that space of wanting to dominate others or dominate situations.
And to do that first, to be able to do that, you have to become clear on what your needs are. And that's kind of where
Very true.
That's kind of where we come to kind of this energy of exploration and wonderment that's Sagittarius as well. This is about exploring what is true for you, and the opposite, Gemini, trying to kind of get that down on paper, get that sorted out, get that clear. There's nothing very clear in this month, so I think it's very right-brained, it's not very left-brained, it's not very rational, it's not very straightforward. It's about bending the rules, it's like kind of not breaking, letting go of the old way of looking at things and really just allowing it to shift. And of course, a lot of that comes from listening to your inner voice, going within. I don't mean spending all day every day in meditation, because that is another form of escapism. You kind of have to listen to the inner voice, then get it down and get clear on what it is you do want, what you do desire, really. Yeah.
Right. And I think what's really important here as you're talking is one of the key things here is the point of truth is that it needs to be grounded in the earth. The eights that we have coming up are all about making things real. It's manifesting, which means we need to ground it in some way, root ourselves in. We can't create something unless we know what it is, just like we're talking about. So the clarity helps us or the writing it down helps us to get clear so that we can take action, because this is about learning to be inspired and take inspired action, it's a two-pronged movement. You don't just get inspired, you actually want to do something. Like, we're not just minds, we're bodies,
Exactly.
our spirits and all of this stuff. So we have an idea, even if it's just like, I just want to have fun, I want to go out and enjoy myself. It's not just the idea. We then need to do something, call up a friend, go out to the store, run into Earth. This is a very important time, because also with the 25 of the moon is the reflective aspect of that. The 7 takes us into nature, into retreat, into listening. We need to listen. What is it that I really believe in? What do I really need to hear? And most of that happens through music, through dance, through that internalization, going to earth, right? Grounding in some ways. So we can go, I'm clear now, as opposed to, wow, there's all this noise around me. The word that came through when you were talking was befuddlement, which I think is really
interesting. Lovely word. Right? Yeah. To be quite honest to the listeners, they will feel very befuddled for a lot of this month. It's not going to be an easy month. But do something, do a practice or several practices. Go out and stand under a tree in your yard with your bare feet on the grass and let your thoughts just come through, and your feelings, or do the morning pages. That's my favorite tool because, and Gemini, the sun is in Gemini. So that is about writing and communication. So it's not surprised it comes through. And if you don't know what that is, Google morning pages, Julia Cameron, if you don't want to join my group. She does a video on it herself, and it's an amazing tool. So, that's taking the action, doing something like the writing, putting yourself in a place. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of spiritual override around the whole terms about grounding and things like that as well. People go, well, okay, I'm going to do a grounding meditation every day, and that's going to do it all. Not necessarily. You've got to find the thing that channels the spirit and your inner voice into practical action. You've got to find the thing that works for you.
Right. And I think the one thing that's really important here and what's coming through is this idea of theory. Like, we have all these thoughts and these ideas, but it's all theory. We don't actually know whether it works or not unless we put it into practice.
Yeah.
So part of this thing is being willing. This idea of letting go of our ego is the being willing to make a fool of ourselves, to do something that we've often desired, even like what I was talking about. Just bug people about something I want that they can deliver, or maybe can't or won't, but it doesn't matter, because then I know I'm actually showing the universe, this is what I want. This is what it looks like. And then I get clearer. I ask people and they say, no, that's not, I can't give that to you, or that's not going to work. But I'm actually in physical activity. I'm doing things and learning, like you and I doing this podcast. I mean, we could have still been talking about, one day we'll do a podcast. Oh, wouldn't it be fun? But we just decided to, hey, there's an idea. Let's just do it. Let's just run with it. And that's what creates change. Yeah. And I think this is a really key point, because so many people get stuck in thought. And when I look at someone like Trump, I see a man who, and here's a great example, because he actually he thinks he's making things happen, but they're just all theories. He's taking theories that he's putting on someone else to make real. And he doesn't care about what are the results showing, because the way we learn is we try something and we go, like, a kid will put their hand on the hot plate and say, oh, that burnt, I won't do it again. But if you don't actually go through the process, like Lou and I going through the process of doing this podcast, we didn't know what, we'd need better mics and all of this stuff. Like, we didn't know that, but we wouldn't have found that out unless we actually took the journey and did it.
Whereas some people spend all forever in the planning and the idea of it and never actually get to launching.
We do that with our spirit work all the time. We're like, oh, I'm getting all this improvement, this healing, but I'm still not ready, or I don't have enough education. A lot of women think they don't have enough information. Like, how will you ever have enough information if you don't go out and do it?
I had somebody say to me this morning, well, I think I could find 5 minutes after I wake up in the morning. And I'm like, just stop thinking about it and making excuses, and just get a notepad, get a pen, and do that stream of consciousness writing. And if you only get half a page done, then it's fine. You're supposed to do 3 pages in the morning pages.
Exactly. That's an excellent point of taking action on something you're inspired to do. So if you're feeling drawn to doing something, then do it. This is also a fantastic month for, and it's also because of the 9, but other areas, is for completing or evolving the way you communicate with people.
Yes.
So, for instance, in a normal way, you might go around the same arguments with the same people and instead say, you know what, I'm tired of doing that thing. What could I do different to have a different result? Well, how do I approach this in a different way? And I think it's about looking at the other person, of their point of view. What do they need to know? What would make it easy for them to say yes, right?
And it's about listening too, of course. Gemini is the sun point of this full moon, and that's listening, taking in information. So this is not all just about how you speak and things. It's about listening to the other one too.
Right. But
Yeah.
that's how you improve your communication, is by recognizing that communication happens on two levels. We often assume things, that people are thinking this or saying this because of their body language, like, oh, I know they're annoyed with me, or they're sliding me or something, because those are our issues. What if we just said to them, I get this feeling like you are turning your back on me. You're not saying in an accusing way, you're just curious.
Yeah.
Then they'll go like, what are you talking about? I wasn't even thinking about you. I was thinking about, I wanted chips for lunch, and it's like, this is all the illusion. That's the Mercury and Neptunian stuff, the illusion we've created, that this is what people think of me. This is what it looks like. And we could be completely wrong. So why don't we just go like, okay, I'll be the fool. That's Mercury, right?
Yeah.
I'll be the fool. That's the number one energy coming up. I'm going to try something different. I don't care how it looks to the world, but I really want this. And I think there's that energy there that empowers us to go, what's more important? What is true for me and my action on it? Or just acting a certain way so people will think this and that about me? That's Trump. Like, I look at him, that's the man, that's the sorrow in my heart for him and people like him, is he'll never get it, because it's all about what it looks like to the outside. It's bombastic. There's no roots in that.
Incidentally, his solar return, his birthday is 3 days before this full moon. So, because he is a Gemini. So just try and step back from, anger at what he's doing and things. Yes, there's nothing wrong with that, but for your own soul, try and step back and just witness how these energies are going to play out through him this month, because I think it's going to be fascinating. I do want to mention one other thing I forgot to mention on the chart of the full moon, is that it's almost an exact aspect to Eris in Aries, one of my favorite kind of divine feminine energies that's really shaking things up. And she really, Eris, I've done whole presentations on this, so very brief version. Eris has been in Aries since 1927, I think. Anyway, it was for most of our lives, and unless you're lucky enough to be really old. And she has, in Aries, she's been shaking up our identities, and she's in her kind of entry into Aries and her discovery, and all the points where she's triggered have been very much associated with the rise of the female identity in everybody, women's liberation, or the female liberation, if you like. So I find it very interesting that she's there shaking this table, because she is a table shaker. She's called discordant. I prefer table shaker, because that has more positive kind of feel to it, because I do think she's a positive energy. I do think this month is just going to be yet another big table shaking month in our collective overall, and in our souls. So there you go. That's my little thing on my
Right.
Aries.
Yes. I think it's important. This is important. Even, all of with the occultations, with the moon being in front of major players, the idea that we're coming into the eclipses. We have the solstice coming up, which is all about the play between light and dark. Eris, we have to get away from our fear of something that we label as dark or bad, and recognize that we live in a world full of polarity, that all of those things exist for a reason. If we didn't have the dark, we wouldn't have the light.
Exactly.
And so instead of being afraid of it or hiding, or I'm not going to look at that, we have some really awful things people do. These are humans that do awful things to each other. And so many of us will say, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to look at it. It's awful. It's disgusting. But if we don't look at it, and I'm not saying we have to examine it and get all close up to it, but we just need to be able to go, that kind of behavior is something I can't wrap my head around. What can I do we need to shift it. Like, we have to all get involved in some of this.
Yeah, in
stuff.
some way.
awareness, right? In some way, we don't have to all dive in deep, but we all need to at least go, I see it, I acknowledge its existence, and I'm not going to lie to myself anymore about it, because this is how we change things. Because when we hide behind, I'm not looking at it, it just gives more power to the people that are doing it. And we just can't live like that anymore. I think the Eris thing is so important, because so much of our history is about woman being the wicked witch or the evil one who comes in and does these terrible things. And of course, all these stories about the females are always horrible. They're always like these nasty women who couldn't control themselves or doing these awful things. And we have to rise above that too and go, wait, many times the woman is the one that will do the so-called ugly thing, the hard thing, to force people to change, because it's through the woman that things change, because they hold the power, they hold the connection to the divine, and the men are there to serve the female. The female is the one that's connected to the divine. And so that's why there's all this energy around making her a bad person or doing bad things, because then nobody will realize that, oh, she's connected to the divine, and the male energy is supposed to serve that, whether it's inside of us or outside of us. That makes total sense. But discord, to me, is such a beautiful word, because it's about music, right? When you hit the wrong note, right? Or you realize, we've been playing in a certain I don't know, I'm not a musician, so I don't know the terminology, but there's a certain, I think, what do you call it, like a note or something, where you play in a certain vibration. And a lot of people say, like, even like the whole Hitler thing and stuff like that, they actually changed the notes of music, so it become discordant. So it changes your brain and changes the way you behave. So when we move our music, the music of our lives, to a different note, that's a note that's run in love, we can approach things. It doesn't mean we're not going to roll up our sleeves and do hard things. It just means we're going to come with the energy of compassion, which is another 9 energy, or the 18. This is a lot of compassion and love that we bring to what is broken, even to our leader, right?
And you're right with the word discord, of course, in that way. That's showing my own kind of bias. The energy of June is very discordant altogether, but it's to shake us out of our old ways of thinking, to help make us to rewrite the music, if you like.
Right, and choose our own note, and choose the note that we can be in accordance with each other, because this is about, we're not an island. None of us are an island. Yes, we can all rush off and be an island, but we're not going to achieve the changes we're here to achieve if we can't learn to be together, even with people we don't agree with. They've done studies where, in America with Republicans and liberals, and they've discovered that when you approach the questions in a certain way, because everyone is key thing, I don't remember, it's the thing in the back of the brain, amygdala or something, that when you are safe, right, as long as you know you're safe, so when you pose the questions in a certain way that you feel safe, they both basically agree on everything. But it's because they're being presented in a way that they feel threatened, and that's part of creating more there's a lot of people in power who want to create discord, because that keeps everyone's attention fighting each other, instead of banding together to say, well, what do we want? Let's stop putting our attention on what we don't want. Let's put our attention on what we do want. Then we will be invincible, because we're working together and we're listening to someone else's need, and we're going, this person's not doing this to bug me. They're doing it because they don't feel safe, or they want love, or whatever it is, right? It doesn't mean you're going to deliver it, but the awareness, that's part of listening. That's part of choosing a different note to live by.
But then if we look at them doing it, because they're doing it deliberately to kind of sow discord between us. If we use that analogy of the magic carpet again, and the rising above and looking at the bigger picture, we can use that discord to wake ourselves up. So anyway, I think,
brilliantly said. Yes.
Yeah. I think we should go to the symbols, because we're well over the hour, because this is such a crucial time. But I'm wary of people, people's time listening to these things. So
Exactly.
I'm going to save the Chandra symbol for after the Sabian symbol. So you go first, because I love the Chandra symbol.
Okay, so the Sagittarius Sabian symbol, Sagittarius 26, a flag bearer in a battle. Very interesting, flag bearer. The keynote, the nobly accepted subservience of the individual to collective values and goals. Fascinating. We've just been talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
A flag symbolizes an organized collectivity of human beings, a nation, or even a social class. In the old-fashioned type of battle, whoever carries the flag has to feel himself the representative of the integrity and unity of his group. His personal life and his welfare should therefore be totally submerged in and identified with the welfare of the greater whole, of which every person can act as a conscious and responsible agent for mankind or womankind. In substance, the symbol asks, are you ready to assume this role? So this is about a consecration to an ideal.
So I think that could kind of be looked at from both directions. It's kind of what we have done. We've been subservient to some other goals, and now it's kind of asking us to consecrate to a new ideal, I think, in some ways.
Right.
For somebody to step up and be the flag bearer.
Yes, step up. But I think right, which is usually the flag bearer is the one who carries the peace sign or the sign of this is who we are, the symbol of who we are.
Yeah.
For me, I think you're saying we've been working as a group, but I don't think we have been working as a group. I think we've been very worried about our appearance of who we are in a group. What do I look like in a group, as opposed to what does it look like when I am who I am and I immerse my energy in the group? I don't think we have been working as a group.
I think we've been following the herd, which is very different.
Right. Oh, well, I misunderstood you. I thought you were saying as a group, that's what we've been doing. So I don't see us as having done that at all. Because
oh, no, I meant the symbol has been saying, yeah.
Which I love.
Yeah.
No, okay.
I kind of meant the symbol saying we've been kind of using the herd mentality, not the working together thing. The subservient word indicates more kind
exactly. So we can think right. Exactly. So it's true. Under the flag, we're all together, but we're really not all together. We're just thinking about ourselves.
Yeah. So, no, we agree completely. So the Chandra symbol, climbing the steps of the pyramid of the sun, classical Maya civilization reenacted in fresh forms, always having the greater sun beating down, always aware of the vaster picture. You tap a sensibility that is profound and extraordinary, the greater gods and the human scene juxtaposed mightily. In tune with the progressive evolutionary currents, you work very hard to reinstate the sacred upon the next spiral, tuned into what is really happening here, an expanded space for dreaming, remembering, conceiving, visualizing, and creating, absolutely knowing that the galactic forces are integral to every breath and moving toward true galactic citizenship with a passion. We could have just read that, really. For the whole...
It would have been done.
For the whole month.
Indeed.
I think that's wonderful, and I think I'm actually going to copy and paste that in the description of the podcast, because if we could think of this, we're being called to evolve,
Yes, and what comes to mind, and especially because a lot of what we're talking about is light, and in terms of how we see the light, we have the solstice, which it's not a balanced night and day. It's the longest day in the northern hemisphere and the opposite in the southern. But what it does make us do is recognize the role of light in our lives, and the role of the dark. Right? We need the dark to sleep. We need it for everything. So it's recognizing where we want to put our energy. What are we covering? What are we putting the light on? Where's our intention? and how does that light filter into our world. So I think that's very powerful.
Mm. Okay. Jen, how can people find you?
So they can find me at jendushen.com. That's my website. My cards, as I mentioned, the Illuminating Journey cards, are for sale. And I dropped the price because I need to get them out more. So now they're $66 per pack.
Bargain.
And I'm going to be teaching fundamentals class for that. I also, and that's on my website, jendushen.com. I also do free readings from the cards in Facebook, and I have a YouTube channel as well that I do readings there. Free readings for individuals if you show up on my Facebook page, Jen Dushen, but also on my YouTube. You can just look for me, Jen Dushen. I'm everywhere. Well, not as everywhere as Louise, but in many places. I do write some for Medium, and everything's on my website or Facebook, Instagram, etc.
Cool. So yeah, you can find me by Googling my name, Louise Eddington. My website, louiseeddington.com with 1D, has links to I was on Patreon, but I've actually moved to a membership community that's mine, not somebody else's. And various levels of membership from $1 a month to $50 a month. So you can check that out through my website. But the thing I'm most passionate about right now, of course, there's also my book. You can buy my book or leave me a review, please. Do you know how hard it is to get people to review a book on Amazon? Weird. But anyway, the Planetary Magic Cafe on Facebook, it kind of got a bit dormant when I got the book contract because I had to focus on that. But it's just suddenly come alive almost on its own. And I've started doing a free monthly call for it at the beginning of the month for the group. And that call this month inspired this 30-day challenge, which is completely free. The group's free. I'm going to be posting every day to encourage you to do the morning pages practice. So if you don't know what that is, just come to the group and check it out. And there's kind of no agenda with the practice other than I'm doing it to make me do it as well. But if I can help myself and help you at the same time, then perfect. But otherwise, yeah, Instagram too, Louise Eddington Astrologer, Facebook page. You'll find me everywhere. So for now, just kind of get on that magic carpet for June. It's going to be a challenging, crazy, intense, insane month, but with huge potential for kind of really raising yourself up. Goodbye from Lou.
And goodbye from Jen.